everyone, I hope you're doing well. So I know right now the world's kind of crazy between the civil unrest and the quarantine and everything happening. But one positive that I have found during this is that I've been able to make a huge dent in my to be read shelf. So I thought I would kind of go over what I've read, give some reviews if it's worth even looking into, give you my opinion, and yeah, this is probably going to be pretty long looking at this giant stack of books I have around me. So we'll just get into it. Also, I'm just learning how to do this. Currently my tripod is a bunch of books, so if the height keeps changing, I'm sorry. And at the moment, my apartment is approximately 40 degrees. So I have to keep pausing every so often and just sit in front of my fan. So if the angle changes, if the lighting changes, I change position, the books change position, I might get there eventually. So let's just learn together. So one of the first books I read during quarantine was something I've been long awaiting, and that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. I am honestly a Sarah J Maas fan. No matter what she puts out, I'm gonna read it, and I'm probably gonna love it. I love the strong female characters. I love the enemies to lovers. I'm just for it, so I honestly give that 5 stars. This story follows Bryce, who's a half-fae female living in Crescent City, and after some tragic events, she's kind of just left heartbroken and trying to learn how to deal with her new reality. And then in a few years in the future, she's kind of thrust into learning what truly happened back in the past and dealing with its consequences and just kind of try to heal after the tragic events. So I honestly give it 5 stars. I'll give anything Sarah J Maas rates 5 stars, so that's not a shocker to anyone. But I think it's definitely worth a read. I honestly read it in 2 days, but it is about 800, 900 pages. But it's quarantine, right? What else we gotta do? One book that has been on my TBR for literally 2 years and I just never really cared about finishing, but finally got to, is by Kristen White. It's Bright We Burn, and it's the conclusion of the And I Darken trilogy. In this series, we jump between Lada's and Radu's perspectives, their siblings. We have Lada, who's trying to conquer her old territory where she used to live, called, I call it Vichala. That's probably not what it's called. But she's trying to overtake that, but where she's a female, she's finding it really hard to even find respect, let alone people who will follow her or believe in her. And she believes the best way to do that is by force alone, which kind of works for her, kind of doesn't. But we may also jump between her perspective and her brother Radu's perspective. Radu, who converts to Islam because he feels that this religion brings him a sense of peace and belonging, and he loves the fashion in which they pray and how their way of life just seems to soothe his soul and fill a void that he's had since growing up as a kid. But both of them are kind of in love with the leader of Constantinople. His name is Mehmed. So it's kind of a weird love triangle between Lada, who wants to be her own person, but if she went with Mehmed, she'd have to follow him. He'd always have concubines kind of situation. Radu also loves Mehmed, but where it would be a male-male relationship that's not really approved of in not only this time period, but as well as a religion. So it's kind of a coming of age story for him as well, in discovering who he is and how much he's willing to sacrifice of himself to get there. So if I'm being honest, I kind of liked the first book, didn't love the second, so I was really hesitant to finish the third book, but I'm glad I did because I really loved the ending. I think it wrapped it up in a way that was appropriate and it still held true who the characters were. So I gave this one probably a 3 stars, just because it's not my favorite story. I felt it kind of dragged. Lada kind of seemed one-dimensional most of the time. It's fight, 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 I'm gonna conquer, which, I don't know, usually good, but this one kind of just felt flat for some reason. It might just be where I don't fully understand the history of the Ottoman Empire, and I'm not really super educated on the Muslim religion, so maybe if I looked into that, I'd appreciate it more. But I do like that there is some LGBTQ representation in this book, and I think that anyone who is questioning who they are or wanting to know more about that kind of lifestyle or how it would affect them personally, I think it's really good that we have that representation in literature. So if you are interested in that, definitely pick it up. So another series I was able to read during quarantine was the Burning Glass trilogy by Catherine Purdy. It involves Burning Glass, Crystal Blade, and Frozen Rain. I didn't like these much. I'm not good at stopping once I start a book, so I did read all three. I'd probably give them 2 stars. These books follow Sonia, who is an aura seer, and these aura seers are able to feel and sense what someone is feeling. They can tell if you're mad or sad just by being in your proximity. In the city of Ryazinin, these aura seers are not employed, they're kind of stolen in a sense. It's their imperial duty to the emperor to serve him, to be able to sense if anyone intends him harm or is going to hurt him, or if anyone's lying to him. And in this world, Sonia is swept off to the capital to work for the emperor. But Sonia's different than the other aura seers. She can also sense if she touches blood, or if she touches a bone or hair or someone's personal belonging. She can sense what they felt when they died. She can also manipulate others' auras and make them feel stuff, which is unheard of for aura seers in this world. I couldn't tell you much. There's a weird love triangle between the Emperor, Sonia, and the Emperor's brother. And apparently these emperors didn't know about each other growing up. They were whisked off to 2 separate areas so that one of them would be ensured to live, so that when their father died, one of them would take over. They're kind of boring. She can't control it. Now she can. Now she can't do this anymore, but oh, she's overwhelmed again. And I don't know. It just kind of felt like the magic was a convenience, and it would work when the plot needed it to work, and then it wouldn't when the plot needed it not to work. So I don't know if I'd recommend them. Catherine Purdy is actually the same person who wrote The Bonecryer's Moon, which I am very excited to read. I know I still haven't, but I will get there. So I'm hopeful that this next book is better than this series, but I guess we will have to see when I get there. I was also able to finish a duology I started, honestly, in high school that I just never got around to reading because I didn't really care. It's Eden Conquered by Joelle Charbonneau. In the first book, after the unexpected death of their father, the trials of virtuous succession will be used to decide whether Karis or Andreas will be the next king or queen of their kingdom. In the last book, I know Karis faked her death, and so Andreas was decided to be king. But now Karis has come back to finish the trials and try to help her brother see that she wasn't the one fooling him the whole time. Someone on the Council of Elders was the one who was deceiving him. Honestly, they're both kind of boring, but they're quick reads, maybe 2 stars. Right, I forgot to mention, I believe they're twins. So that is why there's virtuous successions, because there isn't one who's older than the other. Sorry. But yeah, they're okay. If you get nothing else to read, they're entertaining. I also got to read the conclusion to the Ash Princess series, Ember Queen by Lara Sebastian. This book is about Theo. She was the princess of a nation until it was conquered by a conqueror. And this book's about her and her band of rebel misfit army going to try to free her nation and save her people. She has the magic of flames, which kind of evident by the titles all having to do with either fire or embers or ashes. I don't know. I like the trilogy. It's definitely also closer to middle grade than a young adult book, but it definitely had some perks. I'm always down for fire magic. I don't know why, since I was little, that's always been my element for sure. But it kind of seems a little hollow at points. Like the love interest with the guy in the book, I won't give any spoilers just in case, kind of seems hollow. It just kind of seems like, oh, we saw each other and now we're in love and we're gonna keep being in love, despite there being honestly better options. But it's definitely readable. I'd probably go also 3.5, 4 stars. In the very least, all 3 books are really pretty. So if you're all about the packaging, they're worth having around. Another book I read was 4 Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz. This book is about a kingdom where it's broken up into 4 different territories, and each territory has its own queen. The queens were not raised in the territories. They actually know only what they're told of their kingdoms. and then they rule as separate entities so that they can remain impartial to the rule. So no one can change their opinion or just get in the way, and it's supposed to be the most balanced and fair way of ruling. And suddenly they start dying and they don't know what's happening. But there's also a girl named Carolee Corrington who's actually from the Toria district, and we follow her. She's actually a thief, and suddenly she gets thrown into this world where she feels like it's up to her to save the queens. So I honestly found this book quite original. I had never read this story before, which is kind of exciting. It is kind of a young adult book, so almost towards middle grade, but I gave it 4 stars. It's entertaining, it was fresh. The only thing that kind of confused me was the timeline, but you kind of understand that better once you get to the end, how it all meshes together. But yeah, I definitely recommend reading it if you got nothing else on your TBR list. I was also able to read the first 2 books in the His Fair Assassin trilogy. We have Grave Mercy and Dark Triumph by Robin Lefevers. This book follows some females who were sent to a convent of the Saint Mortaine to become assassins. The first book follows Ismay, who has immune to poisons, and she is sent to the court of Brittany, but unfortunately she starts falling in love with the guy she's supposed to assassinate. So she has to pick between whether to kill him or to try to find a better solution to the problem. The second book follows Cybella, who is sent back to her home kingdom that almost drove her mad due to the abuse of her father as well as her brothers. But then she finds an unexpected ally in the dungeon, and it kind of thwarts her whole plan of getting revenge on her father, which the coven has sworn that she'll be able to do. And it kind of follows her new journey and honestly rediscovery of who she is and some healing as well. So I honestly loved these books. I read them both in a weekend. I give them both 5 stars. I've already bought the 3rd. If you love strong, badass women, totally down. I don't know, there's just something about books about female assassins that gets me. I think if I ever had to go back in the past, I'd totally be an assassin. It's another book that I finally get to read. I'm sorry, I know, I'm the worst person for waiting to read this. Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I know, this is such a beautiful cover. This final conclusion of the Cruel Prince trilogy. This book follows Jude, who has been exiled from Elfhame and was the unknown mortal queen of this realm. She must come back to help save her own twin sister and her mortal life from the court in this realm. And she also has to confront her feelings for Cardan, which, I don't know, it's kind of love, hate, love, because at this point I can't ever tell what they mean or what they don't mean. So that's the whole struggle of this book, is trying to figure out who's saying what and what they mean by what they're saying. Because we all know fairies are very much riddles in everything they say. It was really good. It was well anticipated and kind of confusing, but I did like the ending, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I'd rate it as high as all of BookTube seems to want to be rating it. I'd give it a solid 3.5, 4, but I don't know. I think to fully understand this book, I'd have to reread it again to get all the subtle hints and all the little nods to what they're talking about and try to figure out their riddles. Because sometimes I just read so fast, I just glance over it. But I definitely would reread the whole series. It's a quick read. The books are gorgeous. I don't know. I like the deception. I like Jude's character development of this book. I like Cardan's character development a lot too. It's fun to read characters that aren't just good. There's also some darkness to them, which, I don't know, it kind of gets boring when everyone's depicted as amazing and good and nothing can do no wrong. So, I don't know. I liked it. It's definitely worth the wait. I shouldn't have waited as long as I did, but I am glad to have finally read it. During quarantine, I also got to finish a trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. It's the Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. So these ones, they weren't bad. These stories follow Alina, who is an orphan, and when she's pushed into the army and on her first trek across the Fold, which is this darkened fog area in the middle of their world, she discovers she's a sun summoner, which hasn't been heard of in years, if ever, honestly, I don't remember. But that is rare because she can help conquer the darkness, which is part of the shadow thing that's taking over the middle of the world. No one really remembers how it got there. They just know that if you go into it, you're unlikely to survive because there's these flying monster things in the middle. Honestly, I don't really remember most of this because I read it all 3 in a weekend as well. These books were okay. Honestly, I much prefer the Six of Crows duology. So if you're gonna pick either, I'd pick those ones. Sorry, they're just up on my shelf there. These ones help explain some of the magic, like what the Grisha are, how they're separated into categories, and then it gives a better background on some of the characters that you do see in Six of Crows. Just, I don't know, I gave them a 3, 3.5. They're worth reading, but I wouldn't put them at the top of my list. That's why it took me so long to read them. I've honestly had them quite a while at this point. But they were fun. The love connection between Alina, the main character, and Mel, it's kind of lacking. It's just, I don't know. I prefer enemies to lovers. I like there to be some struggle to get there, but this is just kind of, it's been here all along. And now there's some tragedy, so we don't get together, but we get together again. And I don't know. I like more than that, but yeah, about 3.5, 4 stars. Worth reading, but not life-changing. A book I recently got to finish through the Libby app is actually Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This follows Yuniko, who is a half kitsune, which is a magical creature that can turn into a fox. So she has trickster magic, what they consider. So many people don't trust her outright just because she is half kitsune. But after a tragic event, she is entrusted with a scroll that she must get to another temple after everyone in her temple is brutally murdered by a demon. And after this happens, she finds Kage? I don't remember. I listened to it, so trying to remember how they said it in the book is much different than reading it. But he is a mysterious samurai for the Shadow Clan, but it turns out he is actually a demon slayer who has a demon sword with him that he uses to help kill everything he wants to. Honestly, he's pretty cool. But they must get the scroll to, she must get the scroll to the temple, but he thinks they're going to the temple to receive the scroll. So she's kind of tricked him this whole time about that she actually has it with her. And I kind of loved it. This book really reminds me of an anime. It feels like every couple chapters is a new episode of an anime. There's a new challenge. There's a new person to help. There's a new task they must do. And it's just kind of really cute to watch this guy who's never been allowed to feel emotions slowly start to realize he's actually, spoiler sorry, but slowly realize he's in love with this girl. But she's also lied to him this whole time. So I'm quite excited to see where the next book goes. I give it 4 stars. It's not amazing, but I'm down for it. I like anime. It's been a while since I've been actually able to watch one. So I love getting to hear it almost. Yeah, solid 4 stars if you like books with a heavily Japanese style. One book that quarantine finally gave me the chance to read was A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So we follow Elizabeth, who is an orphan girl who's grown up in the library her entire life and dreams of becoming a warden. Wardens are the protectors of these grimoires, and they keep care of them and they ensure that no harm comes to them, because if they're abused or angered, they become malefics. And one day, one of these malefics happens to appear. It kills a librarian, and Elizabeth saves the day. She saves the town at the bottom of the hill from being destroyed by this malefic. But because she's the only one who woke up, she's implicated in the crime of releasing it. But also, there's this sorcerer who aren't trusted in this world. His name is Magister Nathaniel Thorne. And he comes to her rescue and tries to help her prove her innocence, but also they both need to figure out what's causing these grimoires to turn into malefics. So it's about them learning all they can about something that's been happening since well before they were born with their ancestors, and they must protect their world from someone trying to overcome and destroy it. I honestly liked it. It is a little young. It's almost very young adult, middle grade, but it's cute. I really like the butler, who you find out more about in the book. I like her development as a person. I like how she grows stronger and how you just kind of learn that not everyone is who they seem, and you have to sometimes give people the benefit of doubt, but not always blindly believe what you see. And I don't know, it was fun. It was a cute read. I definitely give it about 4 stars. I've been wanting to read it for a while. I'm glad that I read it and I didn't believe all the mixed reviews and I get to make an opinion for myself. Was it amazing? No. Would I read it again? Maybe. So next is Test of the Road by Rachel Hartman. This book is about a girl who is considered a troublemaker in a time when we females should be ladies and men are the protectors and dragons can just be whatever they want. So after punching her new brother-in-laws in the face and breaking his nose, she decides she's just gonna leave and go on an adventure. Throughout the story, you kind of learn about her history with her honestly abusive mother, overzealous religious, always claiming that females are the tempters and they can't be good, and if you ruin yourselves through sex or anything like that, then you are just trash and you need to constantly repent throughout your life. And her, I don't want to call it romantic history with an older man, because I would consider this a middle grade read, except for when it starts getting on the topics of what I consider to be the rape of a minor. It's not a graphic rape, it's not anything like that, but it's honestly coercion. I don't know, it's hard to know how to talk about it in a sense, just because, no, it seems like in the book they kind of play it off, but it's clearly affected her. It's clearly been a staple in deciding who she is and how she handles herself and how she sees herself, especially paired with how her mother always tells her that she's never going to be anything pretty much her whole life, and that she has to always support her sister, and because her sister's the good one who would never soil herself or ruin herself, and she's got to get her a good marriage and a good husband. And I don't know, I liked it. I think I didn't like it at first. Honestly, at first I would have given it a 2 stars, but the more I thought about it and the more I got to realize why she's the way she is, and she's not impulsive. She is impulsive, but it's not because she's a bad person. It's not because she's just doing it to do it. She's just trying to find a control again after what's happened in her life. And I'm not going to give away more details just because that's something I'd rather you guys discover for yourself. I'd rather you hear her story and learn how she is and why she is the way she is. So I definitely now give it a 4 stars. And honestly, this book is beautiful. So if you only pick it up for that alone, it's worth it. Yeah, definitely 4 stars. It's something to look into. It's something to keep an open mind with, and something that should be brought up into our discussion nowadays about the different ways rape and assault of a minor look in our society, because it's not just strap you down and force you into having sex. There's many different types of abuse, and it's just something that I think, especially at a younger age, you should be made aware of. So I think it's an important book that you should read. Another book I had the pleasure of reading was The Girl the Sea Gave Back by Adrienne Young. This I think is technically a standalone, though it might connect to another book, but Google told me I could read it alone, so I did. This is about Tova, who washed up to shore in the town of Svel, covered in tattoos, and has the ability of a truth tongue. The town of Svel use these abilities, but they don't trust her and they don't welcome her into their town. So she's kind of always lived on the outskirts and always feared for her own life while living there. And in the first time in generations, the leaders of Svel decide they are going to attack another village for power. They want to overtake, and they don't want to live in peace anymore. They want to thrive. They want to decide how to live their lives. So they try to overtake the town. At the same time, we follow Halvard, something like that, yeah. He's a boy from another town over. He's supposed to be their next leader. And they kind of find each other on the battlefield and instantly make this connection. It's kind of not explained well, and there's not much dialogue, but suddenly they're in love and they must protect each village. It was a cute story, but also kind of a middle grade read, so 2.5, 3 stars. I've read much worse, I've read much better, but I know I'm giving a really terrible summary of this book, but that's about it. Clans are fighting. They must find peace. This girl has powers. She uses them. There's a convoluted, somehow love story between two people who share 6 words. It's about a middle grade read. Another series I was able to start during quarantine was The Bone Witch by Rin Gepetto. I finished both The Bone Witch and The Heart Forager. I currently own Shadowglass. It finally came in the mail. These books follow T, who discovers she is a bone witch, or a dark Asha, when she accidentally raises her brother from the dead. And these dark Asha can resurrect the dead and control them, so they are feared, but they're also revered in their kingdom. I find these series kind of heavily follows what a geisha would be, whereas they're raised to bring to parties to help entertain guests and direct conversation, and they learn skills such as singing and music and dancing and protection, as well as train their magical abilities. So we follow her story of her lessons and her learning to navigate this Asha world with her new powers, but we're also at the same time getting a narration in the current time. So we're learning her past, her lessons, we're learning how she got to where we are now in the narration, because she's telling her story to a bard so that everyone can understand why she's doing what she's doing in the current situation, because that's completely different than when she was younger and learning to be a geisha. So it's quite similar to The Book Thief in a sense that we know what's gonna happen almost from the beginning because it tells us. And then we're slowly just learning how we got to this point and why what she's doing doesn't seem so crazy. But I know, I really like it so far. I think it's definitely a 4-star. I kind of don't love T. She's just younger. I believe in the beginning she's 15-ish. And so she's just kind of impulsive and a little immature, but that's to be expected when you're 15 and you're thrust into this magical world you didn't know you belonged to. And you're trying to navigate and understand why things are the way they are, why these elders have such control, and why there's so many secrets being held from everyone. And it's just kind of learning what makes up her new world and kind of just growing as a person, which I appreciate. I really love Rin Gepetto's writing. It's quite artsy and poetic in a way she writes. A little draggy at times, I find. I don't know. It's worth looking into for sure. It might not be your cup of tea, but get it. But it's definitely worth looking into, I think. Because it's very much like a geisha, I think. At least that's what I compare it to, because you're learning all of these hosting skills, dancing, singing, magic, conversation, history. So it's very much a geisha-inspired story. So I was able to read a quartet over the quarantine. It's the Immortals Quartet by Tamora Pierce. It involves wild magic, wolf speaker, emperor mage, and the realm of the gods. This is definitely a middle grade read. It was quite simple, quite kind of boring. There's no real substance to it. It's about a girl who has the ability to talk to and control animals. Eventually she learns how to morph into animals, I guess. I was kind of bored the whole time. I only finished this because my dad bought it for me for Christmas a couple years ago, and I'm really not one to DNF books. I don't know why. Maybe one day I'll get better at it, but I just kind of feel guilty, especially when they are gifts. And then towards the end, it kind of gets creepy because the 30-year-old marries the 16-year-old, or I think she's even 15 at the point. And I know I looked into it and I was like, I thought they were like not good ages for this. And Tamora Pierce's reasoning was that back in the age of these books, it would be quite normal for someone of 15 or 16 years of age to marry someone who was 30. And because that they were no longer in a position of power and they become close friends and partners, that it's okay. And I still found it creepy. So yeah, 2 stars. I've read worse, but I also wouldn't pick it up and I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone. So the first book series I listened to as a reread on Audible was the first 4 books in the City of Bones series. So City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, and City of Fallen Angels. I would hold them up, but I surprisingly don't own them. I read them all. I don't own them. So I know I'm probably should already given my crown of being on BookTube. Sorry, please don't fire me already. I'm not gonna explain the series. You know it, you've probably read it, so you're not gonna be interested in a recap. The first 3 books, I definitely give 4.5 stars. They're interesting, they're different. I liked them a lot, but then I find around book 4, I start losing interest. It just kind of seems to drag and it doesn't seem relevant anymore. It kind of feels like she meant to write a trilogy and it's like, nah, we're gonna keep going. And so she did. I give City of Fallen Angels 3 stars. I don't know. I kind of stopped listening at that point because there's so many other books I'd rather listen to, so I put it aside and started listening to other books. So another 3 books I listened to during quarantine was 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. I'm not gonna explain those books to you. I read them all on the weekend. Sometimes you just need a crappy book, right? Like if people can watch Hallmark movies, I'm gonna listen to crappy books. I don't know, sometimes you just need it. Is it well written? No. Do the characters have any sort of depth? Christian more than Anna. Anna's kind of very one-dimensional. Sorry, I'm complete trash, I know. These next 3, I'm definitely not gonna give you any type of summary or anything for, because it is a series of A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I listened to A Court of Thorn and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin on Audible. Yeah. If you guys don't know what these are, you're not gonna read them. So I definitely already give them 5 stars. My favorite in I didn't read A Court of Frost and Starlight, but I've already read that one, so we're okay. My favorite in the series so far is A Court of Mist and Fury. I love this one. My heart will forever beat for Rysand, so there's no give and take with that. That's just the best one. And then, I don't know, I really like them. I hate the new covers. I feel like I'm not alone, but I feel like this is a very hot debate right now. And I'm so excited for A Court of Silver Flame. Still kind of grumpy it's not A Court of Silver and Flame, but that's just me. I really hope they release it with 2 cover options so we can choose whichever one we want, because I really don't like the new ones. I know it's an adult novel rebrand, I get it. I don't like them. They don't fit the books. They make no sense. But I digress. If all else fails, I can just put it on my shelf and hope it's not some ugly neon color. So we shall see in, well, probably not January. The cover should probably be revealed, I'm gonna guess October, November. So let's hope we're not disappointed. So another book I re-listened to during this quarantine is Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. This, I think, is my favorite book in the 7-book series. I love it, I'll always love it. I don't know, when I first read Throne of Glass, I was kind of in a dark time in my life. As young and naive as I was, you know, your emotions are still heightened at that time in life. But I read the first 3 books in what I think was 2 days. And then I sadly had to keep waiting year after year for the new book to finally be released. But I felt like Aelin was a friend and we climbed out of that dark place in our lives together. It just helped me be okay again. So I will forever love this series. I will forever read this series. I've reread every book every time a new book was coming out. So I think I've read the first book 6 times. I've read most of them at least 2 or 3. I read the last book 2 because I've only read that one twice. But I will forever love this series. I will forever read the series. You can fight me if you wish, but I'm gonna still defend the series, probably till my last breath. Always 5-star, always. So currently I am physically reading The Shadowglass by Rin Chupeco to finish out the Bone Witch trilogy, and I'm listening to, on my Libby account, All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. Adeline Grace, this one's about, oh god, sorry, Amora, who is an animancer in her kingdom, and the animancers are the ones that rule the kingdom because of this dark power they possess to be able to read souls and kill people without touching them. And in order to rule her country, she needs to be able to prove herself in some big display of her power. Unfortunately, she fails, so now she's on a mission to go save her kingdom in a different way with a pirate and her fiance. So I'm only a couple chapters in. I think I'm on chapter 10 or 12 right now. I'm liking it. It's pretty good. It's kind of simple, but it's a new concept and I quite enjoy it. And I really like purple, so I'm kind of biased, but it's a beautiful cover. But I will update you guys when I finish that to let you know how I feel. And I haven't quite started this one yet, so we will update in the future as well. But after I finish those two, the next 3 books on my list are Mortal Heart by Robin Lefevers, Curse the Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, and Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I don't know what order I'll go in. Will probably depend on what comes up on my Libby account. Serpent and Dove is currently in there, so that'll probably be next. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What have you read during quarantine? What are you looking forward to reading? Because I'm sure there's going to be a second wave, so we might all be reading quite a while. So tell me, I want to know what you're reading. I want to know what you're loving. What didn't you like? What were you excited about that fell through? What were you surprised that you loved so much? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. See you guys next time.